Let me begin with a fundamental question that societies have wrestled with throughout history. What is the proper role of government in a free society? This is not merely an academic question. It affects every aspect of our daily lives, from the food we eat to the schools our children attend, from the jobs we hold to the prices we pay. The answer to this question starts with understanding what government actually is. Government is not some benevolent force that stands above society. Government is simply a mechanism through which we try to accomplish collective action. But here's the crucial point. Government has one unique characteristic that distinguishes it from all other social institutions. Government has the power of coercion. It can compel people to do things they would not otherwise choose to do. When we tax, we compel people to surrender their property. When we regulate, we compel people to behave in certain ways. When we prohibit, we threaten people with punishment if they engage in voluntary transactions. This power of coercion is sometimes necessary, but it is always dangerous. The fundamental principle that should guide us is this: the role of government should be limited to those functions where coercion is both necessary and beneficial, and where voluntary cooperation through the market cannot achieve the desired result. So what should government do? First and foremost, government should protect our freedoms. It should maintain law and order, enforce contracts, and protect private property. Without these basic protections, voluntary exchange becomes impossible. If I cannot trust that you will honor your agreements, or if I fear that someone will simply steal what I produce, then the elaborate system of cooperation that we call a market economy cannot function. Government should also provide a framework of rules within which we can operate. But notice the difference between providing a framework of rules and trying to direct the specific outcomes. The rules of the game for baseball tell us how many strikes make an out and how many outs retire the side, but they don't tell the pitcher where to throw the ball or the batter when to swing. Similarly, government can establish rules that prohibit fraud and enforce contracts, but it should not try to determine what prices should be charged or what products should be produced. Government has a role in providing certain public goods that the market cannot readily supply. National defense is the classic example. We cannot have a system where each person buys only as much national defense as they individually want. Defense is indivisible. If the country is defended, everyone benefits whether they paid for it or not. In such cases, collective action through government may be necessary. But here we must be careful. The category of public goods is far smaller than most people imagine. Education, for instance, is often called a public good, but it is nothing of the sort. Education can be and is provided privately. The benefits of education go primarily to the individual being educated, not to society as a whole. Yes, there may be some external benefits to having an educated citizenry, but that hardly justifies government monopoly of education. A far better approach is to give parents vouchers they can use at any school, public or private, creating competition and choice in education rather than a one-size-fits-all government system. Government should also modify the market when third-party effects, or what economists call externalities, are significant. If a factory pollutes the air and imposes costs on neighbors who have no say in the transaction, there is a case for government intervention, but again, we must be precise. The solution is not necessarily for government to take over the activity or to impose detailed regulations. Often the best solution is to establish property rights clearly and let people negotiate. If that's not feasible, then a carefully designed system of incentives, such as effluent fees, may work better than command and control regulation. Now let me turn to what government should not do, because this list has grown far too long in modern societies. Government should not try to protect people from themselves. When government prohibits voluntary transactions between consenting adults, it violates a fundamental principle of individual freedom. Take drug prohibition as an example. The government tries to prevent people from putting certain substances into their own bodies. But this creates a black market, funds criminal organizations, corrupts law enforcement, and leads to violence in our streets. The cure is worse than the disease. People should be free to make their own mistakes as long as they don't harm others. Government should not try to achieve economic equality through redistribution. This is one of the most seductive fallacies of our time. People see inequality and immediately conclude that government should take from the rich and give to the poor. But this approach destroys the incentives that make our economy productive. Why work hard, save, invest, and take risks if the government will simply take away the rewards? Moreover, government redistribution programs create their own constituencies who fight to preserve and expand them. The welfare state becomes self-perpetuating, trapping people in dependency, rather than helping them become self-sufficient. If we want to help the poor, a negative income tax would be far superior. Set a minimum income level. If someone earns less than that, the government supplements their income. Simple, straightforward, and it preserves work incentives. Unlike our current welfare system, which often penalizes people for working by taking away benefits, a negative income tax allows people to keep a significant fraction of what they earn. Government should not determine prices. Whenever government sets a maximum price below the market level, it creates shortages. Rent control is perhaps the best example. It's supposed to help tenants, but what does it actually do? It reduces the supply of housing, encourages black markets, leads to deterioration of existing housing stock, and benefits those lucky enough to have rent-controlled apartments at the expense of everyone else, particularly young people trying to find their first apartment. As someone once said, rent control is the most efficient method yet devised for destroying a city short of aerial bombardment. Similarly, minimum wage laws are supposed to help workers, but they actually hurt the very people they're meant to assist. When you require employers to pay more than a worker's productivity justifies, you ensure that worker won't be hired at all. The minimum wage creates unemployment, particularly among young people, minorities, and the unskilled who most need that first job to gain experience and skills. Government should not regulate entry into occupations and professions beyond what is necessary to protect the public from incompetence or fraud. Yet we have licensing requirements for everything from hair braiding to interior decorating. These requirements are rarely about protecting consumers. They're about protecting existing practitioners from competition. They raise prices, reduce innovation, and make it harder for people to earn an honest living. Government should not engage in industrial policy or try to pick winners and losers in the economy. Bureaucrats and politicians lack both the knowledge and the incentives to make better decisions than the market. When government subsidizes certain industries or protects them from foreign competition, it wastes resources and props up inefficiency. The steel industry, the automobile industry, agriculture, all have benefited from government protection at enormous cost to consumers and taxpayers. Government should not run businesses. Government enterprises are notoriously inefficient because they face neither the discipline of competition nor the threat of bankruptcy. The Postal Service, government-run utilities, public housing projects all demonstrate that government is a poor manager of enterprise. Private companies serving the same functions do so more efficiently and responsively. Here's why this matters so much. Every time government expands beyond its proper functions, it does three harmful things. First, it reduces freedom by forcing people to act contrary to their own wishes. Second, it reduces efficiency by replacing voluntary cooperation with compulsion. Third, it concentrates power in the hands of government officials, creating opportunities for corruption and abuse. The growth of government also has a ratchet effect. Once a program is created, it develops a constituency that fights to preserve it. Government programs almost never disappear. They only grow. We create a department to solve some problem, and 20 years later, the problem may have changed or disappeared, but the department is still there, bigger than ever, looking for new justifications for its existence. The question is not whether we should have government. Of course we should. The question is what size government and what functions. A government limited to its proper role, protecting our freedoms, enforcing contracts, providing a framework of law, supplying genuine public goods, can be small and efficient. But when government tries to be all things to all people, when it tries to protect us from ourselves, when it tries to equalize outcomes, when it tries to direct economic activity, it becomes large, intrusive, inefficient, and ultimately tyrannical. The great virtue of a free market system is that it gives people what they want, not what someone else thinks they ought to want. It allows 1,000 flowers to bloom, 1,000 experiments to be tried. Most will fail, but some will succeed brilliantly. And we cannot know in advance which those will be. Government planning, by contrast, puts all our eggs in one basket chosen by political rather than economic criteria. The choice before us is not between a perfect market and an imperfect government. Both are imperfect. The choice is between an imperfect market that coordinates the activities of millions of people through voluntary cooperation and an imperfect government that coordinates activities through coercion. History has shown repeatedly which works better. Thank you.